Oh man. What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and I just got done watching the E3 press conference for Electronic Arts. Now, this is really the first official conference of all of E3 2018, so I was expecting something quite surprising. Some big games, more information on the projects we already know about, and it was overall a little bit of a mess. The biggest thing is, I'm actually going to have to skip some of the stuff they talked about because it's frankly so boring, including a freaking mobile game on stage. No, I am not joking. If you didn't watch it live, at one point they had professional esports people come out on stage and play a cell phone game for about 20 minutes, and it is a very boring cell phone game. Also, they of course talked about tons and tons of sports, which I'm not really a sports person, so I'm going to be skipping that. So let's just talk about the things that are actually interesting, which of course are Star Wars, Battlefield V, and also Anthem, which we got a lot of information on two of these things. I want to start off with Battlefield V because that's how they opened up the stage, and I thought that that was a smart move. People are a little bit conflicted because this is definitely a very fictionalized version of World War II. While there were people on the battlefield who had prosthetic arms and stuff, this is definitely a certainly over-the-top, action-packed, exaggerated version of World War II. But something I do have to say is, overall, I'm actually pretty hyped for this. Something about Battlefield V seems like they've got the pacing and speed really dead on. But something that really gets me the most excited is the fact that it will have an expansive single player. They are bringing back the Battlefield War Stories thing from Battlefield 1, which means that instead of having one long overarching campaign, you have a series of very shortened single stories where you can actually go in and play as like a pilot behind enemy lines, or be somebody whose job is blowing up enemy bases with stolen dynamite. Things like that. More contained tales, that way you get more of a feeling about Battlefield 2 or World War II instead of just giant over-the-top eccentric craziness like Call of Duty. Something else is, I do like that they're really trying to expand on the multiplayer. I really enjoyed the online multiplayer of Battlefield 1, but let's face it, it could be limited at times. It only had a couple modes, and once you got tired of Team Deathmatch and Conquest, there wasn't a ton to do. So when they came out on stage, they really made it a point to try and emphasize that they wanted to try and make it where customization is first and foremost. Tinkering around with specific parts of your gun and your character, but also the place you're fighting itself. You can destroy entire structures. If you drive a tank into a building, congratulations, that building is dead. But not only that, they showed that you'll be able to drop certain barriers, like putting fences down or setting up like an artillery shelling thing, and then change it around later. Like they actually showed somebody inside of a huge cannon that was just on a trailer shelling the heck out of the enemy soldiers, and then when he needed to get out of the way, somebody backed up a tank with a trailer hitch, attached it, and then drove him to a different spot. Now, these type of things don't seem like they're crazy mind-blowing, but in game modes that are longer, that can be so epic because you end up being able to coordinate with your team to do really big attacks later on. It makes it where there's a real strategy to the shooting despite the fact that it is so chaotic. You're not just charging toward the front lines again and again and again and getting blown to bits. Also, towards the end of the Battlefield V reveal, they actually said something that isn't necessarily stunning, but it did surprise me a tiny bit, which is that we are getting a mode that I think is Battle Royale in Battlefield V. It was just called Royale. They just said, we will be having a Royale mode. So I think that that's your standard Battle Royale, but hopefully with at least a lot of World War II flavoring. Make me jump out of a World War II bomber and pick up World War II guns and give it that real grittiness to it. I'm quite excited for Battlefield V, but something that really kind of got me hyped out of my mind is something that we didn't even get a screenshot of. They simply brought out the one of the developers at Respawn Entertainment, which are the people who made Titanfall. Even though Titanfall 2 pretty much bombed, it is a masterpiece of a shooter. Not only is it fun in multiplayer, the single player has some really mind-blowing moments that showed that these are people who not only understand combat, but understand level design and understand how to keep you on the edge of your seat for hours and hours. And they have now said that they're going to be creating a new Star Wars game. In fact, they're already hard working on it, and it's going to be coming out next winter. We're going to be getting it sometime late 2019. Now, the thing that's cool about this is they've suddenly revealed the setting of it, which is during the Dark Times, which if you've read any of the Star Wars books or gotten into the Star Wars lore, this is between Episode 3 and Episode 4, and it's when basically the last remaining Jedis were being hunted down. Everybody had orders to just find these last remaining people and kill them at any cost. So it's a little bit, we don't know exactly what it's going to be, but the title itself is going to be called Jedi Fallen Order. So that sounds pretty good. I mean, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order opens up a lot of doors of potential. They also came out on stage and talked about the fact that we're getting a ton more DLC for Star Wars Battlefront 2, which is kind of mind-blowing. I mean, that game did really bad. And so the fact that Electronic Arts is still trying to sell us more stuff with it, man, it's really weird. It's kind of just shows they need that to make money. They need to try and prove to their investors that they can maximize that profit. Then we got perhaps the most interesting thing, because I really didn't expect it, is then we saw two really good indie games. After talking about Star Wars, they really took some time to show us some weird, more out there projects, which is going to be Unravel 2, which is pretty cool just because the original Unravel was decent. I was never, I'll be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of the first Unravel just because I couldn't get into it, but the fact that this sequel is going to be fully co-op, that's kind of cool. And also, they revealed this kind of indie game called Sea of Solitude, where basically it's this universe where if you get too lonely, you literally morph into a monster. And it's about this woman who has become a monster trying to find a way to become a human again. Artistically, it looks like it's going to be pretty dang decent, but we'll have to see. Obviously, that's a way out. The thing that I feel like is the strangest about this conference is the fact that they've revealed that Electronic Arts is trying to make a complete game streaming service. Something where you'll actually be able to pay, like, who knows, $20 a month maybe, and stream every single Electronic Arts game. Even stuff right as it comes out, which means they specifically showed Battlefield V and Anthem, meaning that if you pay this monthly fee, you'll be able to stream at any time, anywhere. Now, I kind of give them credit because the technology to create that is extremely expensive. So the fact that they're using their billions of dollars to try and push technology forward, that's pretty cool. But we'll see how it actually turns out. A lot of streaming services are really paltry. They decided to close out the show, though, with Anthem, because I think that they're really leaning on this, hoping it'll be a big blockbuster. And a lot of the new information we got is quite out there. I think the biggest thing to me is they finally talked a little bit more about the story and this planet that we're going to be on, where we're essentially people who live inside this giant armored wall, and the rest of the planet is very hostile. There's giant monsters and incredibly powerful storms that'll literally vaporize you in a second, and the only way to even survive out there is to put on these mechanized suits called javelins and fly around like Iron Man and shoot lasers and missiles. So we've seen that in earlier teases, but the thing that's kind of crazy is the way they've decided to integrate single-player storytelling into a multiplayer game, because that's kind of how they're phrasing it. When you go to town inside the wall, that is where you walk around and it's just you by yourself. You talk to quest givers, you do different stuff, you customize different elements of the city possibly. That is your single-player experience. But whenever you're taking on a mission, when you leave, it becomes a multiplayer shared server, making it where if you go out at 2 a.m. and you're walking around in the middle of the night trying to hunt down a giant, like, dinosaur-looking thing, other people will also be there. Now, this is kind of cool because I feel like it solves a problem that a lot of people have noticed, which is that games that try and be heavily multiplayer focused, the single player feels flat, and games that are really, really single player focused end up having really, really thin multiplayer. So trying to make it where it's two pieces of an isolated event that then come together and combine like the mech suits that are in the game, that's a smart decision. The last thing that kind of really intrigued me is somebody who's already been interested in Anthem is the fact that they make it sound like you make a character, like I'm probably going to make a character named DreamcastGuy, of course, but when I'm playing it, the javelins are like classes. They have different skills and different abilities, but you can put on different mech suits, different javelins. So you're not stuck playing one way. You can do different stuff, become different characters. It sort of sounds like you're going to have sort of character slots and get different gear for them. So I have to say that overall, there were a lot of issues with this press conference, and I don't think I liked it overall. So I am going to give it a 6 out of 10. I think that what they're trying to do is interesting. I think Battlefield V is going to sell like hotcakes. I'm very excited for this Star Wars game, and I do have high hopes for Anthem, but I still think that there's so many, these conferences are so slow because it's just soccer, 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 football, now we're going to do over here and do an esports thing, and now let's get out a cell phone game for 20 minutes. Don't do that. It kills us. Okay. These have been my thoughts on that conference. Do me a favor, give this video a like, share your thoughts in the comments down below, and keep dreaming. I am, of course, going to be covering all the E3 press conferences, so if you haven't already, definitely subscribe and see my thoughts on everything coming up. Oh, hey, I was just playing a little bit of Grand Theft Auto on my Darth Vader PSP. Are you curious what I'm going to come out with next? Well, if you click this button, you'll be subscribed to be the first to know. Also, if you click over here and here, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. I promise, it was super good. Or it was really bad, and I'm sure you can just make fun of me in the comments. Either way, it'll be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching.